Your Excellencies, members of our Academy, distinguished professors, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. It's my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the Academy of Sciences and Arts of Bosnia and Herzegovina and in my own name. This is a particular occasion. His Excellency, Ambassador of India, will deliver a short introduction about the topic called Shifting Focus to India and Asia in the Present Century. Afterwards, we hope to have a fruitful dialogue between ourselves and between all the present members in this room. Please use the opportunity to be included into the exchange of mind. I am glad to inform you that the compelling idea behind this topic has already given some results. For instance, Peace Center, International Peace Center, headed by Mr. Spahic, has included the topic Infinity Incredible India into this Winter's Festival of Sarajevo, and the Academy of Arts and Sciences and Arts of Bosnia and Herzegovina is going to initiate negotiations and make agreement, memorandum of understanding between the corresponding Indian Academy of Social Sciences. Your Excellency, please take the floor.
Esteemed President of the Academy of Sciences and Arts of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Professor Milos Trivkovic, my colleagues, Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, resident in Sarajevo. I'm a non-resident ambassador. I reside in Budapest and am accredited concurrently to Bosnia and Herzegovina. I've been coming very often, and in fact in December last year I visited the Academy and had very useful talks with the President and members of his staff and various other people about how we can explore possibility of cooperation institutionally between the Academy of Sciences and the corresponding academic institutions in India. To this effect, we have already started looking at various possibilities, and we have already started informing the concerned nodal bodies in India about the possibilities of our engaging in this very important domain of education, science and innovation. I'm just running a very quick slideshow on India. I will not say anything, it is just self-explanatory to you, because what I'm going to say will come later. But while I'm talking to you, this is just running like that. You will see the various progresses of India since our independence for the last 68 years that we are a free nation. What we have achieved so far, what remains to be achieved, and how we envision our progress, and along with our progress, the progress of the world. I must also thank Mr. Ibrahim Spahic, the main organizer, who brought us together here. He was the one who suggested that I speak here as part of his Sarajevo Winter Festival. He is here. Thank you very much, Mr. Spahic, for always being an encouragement to our embassy for various activities that we have been doing here. I also see Madam Fatima Sita Somon She, the president of the Bosnia-India Friendship Society, a very keen supporter of engaging our two countries, India and Bosnia and Herzegovina, and many other friends, members of the media, members of the intelligentsia, members of the presidium of the academy. Welcome to you all to this. We have not devised a set format as such, because as the president just mentioned to me, he has just spoken a few words. Maybe I could speak a few words, and those will be pregnant with meaning, so that you come back to us with questions on what we can further elaborate on various subjects of your choice, and we leave it open-ended so that it becomes more of a critical discussion. It's a knowledge session, and knowledge session is always good to keep it open-ended, so that knowledge flows both ways, and we will thereafter benefit from that kind of engagement. India is a knowledge power. It's an established knowledge power. Not today. We believe that since the days of the Vedas, which is over 5,000 years ago, since India established itself as a recorded civilization on earth, knowledge has been the primary essential attribute of the Indian society. The Vedic society was basically based on knowledge. We had all the efflorescence of sciences, you can say. We had, for example, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, medicine, physics. All the ancient sciences were based 3,000 years, 5,000 years ago, recorded in India's civilization as part of our first recorded civilization, which was later on, much later, came to the world through the archaeological excavations in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which came much later. But Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which also dates back to at least 3,500 to 4,000 years ago, speaks of a very, very developed civilization at the time, where we had habitations, very, very highly developed town planning, architecture, navigation, and they were always on the banks of the rivers, so they always had fertile land, so agriculture was flourishing at the time. And then we find there has been a hiatus. There has been a little gap in the civilization for a certain time, until we find again with the modern day civilization. Before then also we had various religious efflorescences. We've had, for example, Buddhism, which emanated from India in the 6th century BC, before Christ. In fact, Gautam Buddha was born nearly 560 years before Jesus Christ, and he has given a kind of a totally different worldview to the world. And today we have millions of his followers called Buddhists themselves. And we have also his contemporary Jainism, which was again another breakaway religion, but they all came from this source, which was Hinduism. What we call Hinduism was not then known as Hinduism. It was called as Sanatan Dharma, which was an eternal way of life. And Dharma has been often confused by Westerners who think that Dharma is religion, but Dharma is much more than religion. Dharma is, we cannot define it properly in English language. Dharma is a combination of what life is, what living is, what life needs to be, with all essential ethics, morality, value systems, and all the principles of good living. And good living, including also good health and all that, together is the dharma part. Dharma is how you look at being a good person in the society, and how you form yourself, and that becomes your dharma in the society, which is kind of a moral duty and devotion of yours, or commitment of yours to the society. So that being so, we have established this dharma tradition, And the Dharma tradition essentially has given birth to Buddhism, Jainism. Christianity came to our soil around the same time as it came to this part of Europe. And we got the first Saint Thomas was one of the early disciples of Jesus Christ, who came to our shores on the southwestern shores of Kerala, state of Kerala, and then he further traveled through India, and today we have the shrine in the southern part of India. And similarly, we have many other religious incursions into India. We've had many cultural symbiotic influences in India, where the original body of India was completely assimilated, integrated into various cultural streams which were penetrating into India. And because the body mass was huge and people found various entry points to come into India, right from the north, from the extreme north to the extreme south, they have used almost 20 entry points to come into India through land, through water, through various ways, and of course the famous search for spices of the early conquerors, as you all know, Vasco da Gama and all those people who had come later on, and they set up their base in India. And finally we had the colonialists, and we have a wave of colonialists. And we had, for example, the Portuguese, who were among the early colonialists, and we have still some remnants of Portuguese culture in India. You may not believe that, but it is there in India. We have a place called Goa, which used to be a Portuguese colony until not so late, till about early 1960s. Goa used to be a Portuguese colony. People in Goa used to speak Portuguese, and they had the links, the affiliations with Portugal. Similarly, we had some Spanish incursions into India. Then came the French, and followed by the French came the British. The British were, of course, the most long-lasting. They spent more than 200 years on our soil. They dominated us. They conquered us. They conquered us politically, but of course the fiber of the society was always strong. So that led to a lot of regeneration of thoughts and ideas among leaders of those times, and primarily led by a person called Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, popularly known as Mahatma Gandhi. Now Gandhi, the way, the direction which he gave to liberating our land was as if he was liberating entire oppressed humanity. So we feel that India's liberation in 1947, I think India's liberation, independence, was among the earliest liberation movements in the world. And after India's liberation, it was a snowball effect, and it went on liberating country after country in Asia, in Africa, in South America, in various other places. You see a wave of decolonization in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and thereafter. And there was this decolonized, emerging small and big countries out of the shackles of colonialism, who came out, and they wanted to establish themselves. They wanted to set up their own destinies. And that was how modern day history is built. That we came out after maybe 200 of British and then another 500-600 of Islamic rule and colonization, and so it was like 1,000 years of conquered history for us, which we inherited. On 15th August 1947, we inherited that part of history, but we didn't shun it. We didn't avoid it, we didn't disclaim it. It is a part of our heritage, part of our history, because whatever the colonialists have done in the positive sense to our society have stayed. There has been no cleavage, no damage to that. They are still much more respected within the composite culture of India. So I think the unique point in Indian civilization which gives it that solid foundation is, first of all, that it is the oldest civilization in the world, oldest living, continuing civilization in the world. You won't find many civilizations which were contemporaries of Indian civilizations when it was born, who are still alive today. Many civilizations have come taken effect for a few years, maybe 1,000 years or 2,000 years, and then gone with the passage of time. But Indian civilization has stayed the course of time until today, and we pride in that. Not only is that a continuing older civilization, it self-renews. It self-renews in the sense that whatever is the good part of our civilization gives birth to more and more positive things. So it establishes, re-establishes, reaffirms and renews the good positive parts of the societies. So you had still our Indian society which carries the best parts of the 5,000-year-old society also in today's society. It's an amazing kaleidoscope of what a society could be. There is no other society like that in the world which carries the ethos of 5,000 years, 4,000 years, 3,000 years, 2,000 years and 1,000 years and today's world. All that together in one place. Maybe if you go to Banaras, you will see that in one place. You just go through the streets of Banaras, which is one of the most ancient cities in the world. You will see perhaps all the ages reflected in the living of this city. So that, I think, it gives a very important part of our strength. We go from there, and on that base, as I said, we didn't discard anything. We laid a foundation on that base, and that today becomes our highly coveted. We are proud of that. That is our composite culture, what you say, our pluralistic culture. We are a nation of 1.25 billion people. We are the youngest nation in the world, in the sense that half our country's population is below 35 years old, which means we are 600,000 people who are below 35 and maybe 500,000 below 25 years old. And these are the people who are waiting to go. They are aspiring. Their aspirational expectations, if they are met, they could do a lot of things for our society and for the world at large. So I think this becomes a kind of demographic dividend for us. This is a kind of a skill reserve for us. And we are skilling them, that is our program. And perhaps the same way I could also suggest to the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina, because you have a good stock of young intellectuals and entrepreneurs with you, and perhaps they could also be skilled to look ahead and constitute a good foundation for your society, like what we have done. We laid the foundation very soon after our independence, in the sense of laying the base of our best educational institutions, best management institutions, best technology institutions, and those graduates today are doing the best wherever they are going in the world. So they are winning laurels for our country, winning laurels for themselves as well as for their host countries, wherever they are. So today, if you go to Silicon Valley, you will see maybe 40% or more of Silicon Valley is spread with Indians. Indians who have gone from India. If you see a total, if you see a sketch of American society today, you will see about 3.5 million Indians who are in America, and Indians have become today the most professional and most solid, coherent ethnic group of America today. And if they were not there in the professions, for example, if they were not there in the medicine, if not there in the law, if they were not there in management, if they were not there in IT, if they are not there in other businesses, in hotels industry, we don't know what would happen to America. And America needs them as much as Indian graduates also need to flourish in the American society. So therefore, as you know, today's society is a global society. There is absolute freedom of movement. There is no borders anymore. We are all penetrating all kinds of borders. There is no rigidity about rules anymore. And wherever there are skills, they are being invited to any part of the world. So the Indian skilled manpower is traveling to several corners of the world. They are doing extremely well for themselves. And as I said, they are winning credits for the country as also. So this is primarily the background of it. And now I just highlight a little bit about what subject. Actually, this subject was conceived by Mr. Spahich when he discussed first time with me that shifting of focus from the west to the east, and east meaning Asia primarily, and India is also one of foremost countries in Asia. So that was the subject which I was thinking to myself that it will not be an easy subject to discuss, and among many other colleagues of mine who are from the Western hemisphere, I may not be able to give this logic a little too far, because, well, there could be sensitivities which I may not be able to withhold. So to basically describe what we mean by that is, there is a general perception in the world today that power is moving. Power is moving from the Western Hemisphere to the Eastern Hemisphere. Specifically, power is moving towards certain points in Asia. And why is that? Because there are certain points which are developing as power points in Asia. And these points, for example, China is one point, India is another point, Japan is another point, South Korea is another point. These are some of the, and of course there are smaller points like Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia. All these are highly dynamic economies, emerging economies, and they're all raring to go in the global economy. They all want a place under the sun in the global. Too much of competition is happening. And as you know, where there is competition, there is innovation. Where there is innovation, there is productivity. And when there is productivity, there is growth. Today, India's growth per capita, GDP, counts at 7.4%. And this is the second highest after China, of course. And we, according to all indicators, we feel that next year we'll be exceeding 8%. And perhaps that will go beyond China's growth. So it is a very tough competition which is going on our part of the world. We are looking at some of the biggest engines of growth now. What could be our biggest, for example, manufacturing or innovation or infrastructure development. These are various sectors which are very critical, very strategic sectors for growth, and we are giving a lot of emphasis for that. We have a scheme in India called Make in India, which is now popularized by our new Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, who came to power last year in May, and he's already done about 10 months in the government, and he wants to take India very much forward. He's a very forward-looking man, dynamic person. He wants to build India as a country, as a model to be reckoned with. Because India's situation is very ideal now. India is placed locationally extremely well, skill building very well. We have one of the largest markets in the world, so therefore there is a lot of consuming power in India, and we have English skills available. Everybody is literate in English in India. There is nowhere you can have any difficulty in speaking and communicating in English, and today without knowing English you can't go too far in the world. So what we have developed now is an ideal situation for making India one of the most attractive foreign direct investment destinations, number one. Also because it is spiritually very well mature, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we have inherited that Vedic Dharma civilization which continues till this day. It is therefore a very strong society. It doesn't shake with so many invasions have happened on our land, so many people have come in, gone out, plundered our land, and we became very poor following these continuous invasions of our land. Many countries like Switzerland, for example, never had that experience, thank God for that. They could never, but we did suffer. We suffered a lot. We suffered nearly 1,000 years of continuous colonization and continuous plundering, continuous poverty-ification of our country. So therefore there has been a big drain of resources from out of our country in capital, in material, in human, and whatever you can say. So we have suffered all that, but we don't take those suffering much too much, because as per our philosophy, we look at tomorrow more than yesterday, and we feel what we can do today, we should do better today. And therefore this is our position today. We feel that we can cater up to the global expectations today as one of the global powers which we are looking at being one of the emerging global strengths of the world. And our strength is perhaps, unlike other countries who have their own strategies to build, we have no access to grind against any country. We have no particular dangers perceived which will thwart, which will check our growth spiral substantially. We can build on that. We believe in a positive attitude. We believe in taking everybody along us, and we believe in this cooperation. We developed with South-South cooperation. Now it is a global cooperation. When there is a globalized society, it is a global cooperation. And therefore India believes in being a positive element, a positive member of the globally networked society, where every country is playing its role in how to be more and more competitive. I will not say much about the European Union, you will know it well. I hope, I aspire that one day when Bosnia and Herzegovina moves into the European Union, you will feel the growth factor also perhaps in a different way. But as of now, you have your own scheme of things. You can take your own trajectory. You can see what is good for yourself and how you can develop within your region in this part of the world. There are many networks which Bosnia and Herzegovina has also developed, both in terms of science and technology. Mr. President, I was very impressed with the Academy's various memoranda which you have signed with so many other leading academies of the world, which means your academy is deemed as one of the most important pivotal centers of knowledge in this region, and we greatly respect that, and we would like to see how best we can develop our knowledge sharing between us and you. And once again I thank Mr. Spike for the opportunity he has given me, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I heard your speech, and until the others warm up, I would like to propose a dialogue, reflection about certain topics. Thinking about this meeting and the dialogue that should be established, I was struck by the fact that it's very difficult to find two countries which are more different one from another, and yet with similar histories and share similar problems. At the moment, your problems seem to be much lesser than ours. Anyway, we both live in the era of globalization. For the sake of the discussion, I will define it as the creation, as the formation of transnational social spaces, those who do not belong to any particular nation or state. We have seen it in economy. Your slides have classically shown that globalization has taken a deep root in India. I'm much more interested in a general question. What do you believe that the process of globalization has contributed to India, and what's the most important contribution to the globalization process?
I think India's most important contribution to the globalization process is its contribution in information technology. We have been a major IT contributor to the world, and I think that has been a very important factor of globalization itself. And IT, as you know, is a platform. It's not only one sector, but it is across many sectors. It can be a platform. You can build many things on IT. And a lot part of scientific developments come on this platform alone. For example, even in defense, the forward systems in defense are very well developed on this platform. And I know that Bosnia and Herzegovina, you are now developing yourself as some kind of a power in this region which can achieve some innovation in this area, and we stand by you because, as I mentioned, India believes in sharing its experiences. We are not exploitative, we are sharing. Our ethos, our philosophy is to share what we have developed for ourselves. We want to share it with the rest of the world. For example, the IT which we developed for ourselves, we have shared it with the entire world now. And our people are going and doing excellent work in US, in Canada, in UK and other parts of the world. So that is the kind of spirit we want to. And globalization, I think IT has had a tremendous contribution which has gone from India. And I think if you don't accuse me of being very theoretical, maybe the spiritual part of India, if I may say so. In the sense that there has been a kind of a spiritual regeneration in the world today, what we are seeing, and many of these regenerative values are coming from India, if I may say so, because we have given to the world a great spiritual discipline in the form of various religions which have come to us and got kind of regenerated on Indian soil and gone back with a very liberal spirit. And I think that is the other side, which you can say, one material, the other spiritual, and both these sides flourish very well in India today. And that is, I think, our strength. I hope I...
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what I really was asking for to hear. And I agree with you, because one of the measurements of the globalization process is the speed and the quantity or exchange of pictures, I would say, any kind of text or written sign. And that's why I hope we'll be able to use your platform to build up a cooperation between our two institutions, academia, social sciences in India and this one. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to some other speakers.
Yes, please. Any of my colleagues from the diplomatic community? Yes.
Dear Ambassador, dear colleague, you spoke about this big country of India with so long-standing tradition and history. You also spoke about the diversity of language and culture. I would like to ask you, where do you see the glue of the Indian society for the cohesion of this country? What are the key factors which keep this big country together?
It's a very important question, Ambassador, you asked. It's very difficult to answer this question, actually. One who lives in India could feel that he's an Indian. If you go to any part of India, you have that sense that you are an Indian. That maybe that glue is the nationhood, that wherever you are, you belong to the nation, that you are a part of the nation, and you are an Indian national. Be it you are in Northeast, or in West, or in South, or in North, because each of these regions is a mini country, and they have nothing in common with each other. They are like the European Union. India, if you take the map of India, you take all the states of India, each state has its own identity, very separate identity. If today you were to carve out these states, like member states of the European Union, you could well do it. So it is very difficult actually to portray what is that glue. I think one glue is the nationhood, which binds us all. The other glue is that we have ourselves being the sufferers of history, or we have ourselves being the subjects, the dominant subjects of history, everybody, without exception. So we fought together. Under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, we all fought together. He was the one who rallied the whole masses, Indian masses, around him, and we all went and demanded independence from the British. And that was a very big struggle for us. So when we were a part of that struggle, and when we got independence, we owned it, and we cherished it, and we wanted to build on that. So everybody has a sense of belonging to that struggle, and therefore the aftermath of that struggle, and therefore now a free, independent, modern India. So that, I think, is the number one glue. And then we have minor glues, let's say, like democracy. Democracy is very successful in India. It is running without any break for the last 68 years. We just finished with our 15th general election, and we finished that, which is parliamentary election, where there was an electorate of 850 million people who were eligible to vote, out of which about 660 million people actually voted. And these voting booths were all over the country, conducted by Election Commission. That is a great glue, that you are democratic constituent of a great democracy, of a democratic tradition which is unbroken. There is nothing. Our army rests in the barracks. Our army doesn't come on the streets. Our army never poses a threat to our leadership. That is well known, well established. So we have that. And perhaps another glue could be secularism. And we strongly believe in holding that secular idea, because Pandit Nehru was very concerned, because when India got independence, our country was breaking apart. Not only by partition, because the British, they gave an option for, there were 552 principalities, royalties, who were still existing, and they gave the option to them that either you come to this part or that part. And those two parts were later on called India and Pakistan. And there was a great upheaval in the society. There was a lot of communal clashes, because there were two distinct dominant religious groups, Hindus and Muslims, who were fighting with each other. They were killing each other. I mean, the killings of those times in India rival no other killings. No other killings, including in this country. The killings which happened in this country, just a little, little element of those killings. 10 million people were killed in India. The biggest genocide in history between two countries had happened. So secularism again is a glue, because today everybody feels that we owe it to Nehru to have brought that ethos of secularism. And today we cannot challenge that idea. That because so many diversities are there on our land, that we got to respect each diversity. No particular fragment of the diversity can be detached. We cannot live like that. So whenever there is a little disturbance against a church or a mosque or a temple or whatever, then there is a social, immediate, there is as the civil society gets up, or the leadership gets up, the government takes action. So it is immediately, quelled down. So is not allowed to remain, linger. Those are the virtues, because, being a big society, being a huge population, we have, even China is bigger than us, but China doesn't have that kind of a diversity as we have. China has only one region of Muslims. We have Muslims all over our country, all over. So Mahatma Gandhi said, which Muslims are you going to take out of our country? They are all Indian Muslims. You see, that is the difference. The Muslims in India will always feel that they are Indian Muslims. Where do you take them? You can't take it into Pakistan. First of all, Pakistan will not accept them. Secondly, Pakistan doesn't have space to keep those Muslims. And these Muslims will never go there, because they are happy. Because they have a shared history with the Hindus for hundreds and hundreds of years, since they became Muslim. So that is why those are the strengths of India which has kept us going. But still, it is still a very, mystified kind of thing. And a person who goes to India, who experiences India, can only give a proper response to it. One cannot theoretically justify or give some reasons, but I have just sketched a little bit, maybe a little outline for you. Maybe you can visualize a little bit, but the strength will be in going and living and experiencing in that society and seeing what that society is. It's a very, very elaborate, long, continuous civilization and society. It's an old society, and there are, we don't call ourselves a westernized society, for example. We call ourselves a modernizing society. like the rest of the world. Because we have taken some Western attributes, but we do not allow those Western attributes to dominate our cultural consciousness. Our traditional ethos is very powerful. Even in India, you go to now a classical Indian concert, you find it's packed to capacity, even by the younger people. And the performance there is basically a traditional performance, not a modern performance. So you could have a jazz concert playing along with a sitar concert. People will come as much to the sitar concert as to the jazz concert, even more to the sitar concert, which is playing a traditional music. So that is the beauty of India, where both the jazz and the sitar have coexisted together. And that is the beauty of our land. I think we have not denied anything. Everybody is welcome. We are an all-inclusive, all-encompassing society, and that is perhaps our greatest strength. Thank you. Yes.
Your Excellency, thank you for the presentation and also for the PowerPoint information. It was very, very useful, and I hope it can be available online on our Academy's website. For us, at least from my generation, from Bosnia, the knowledge of India really came through the non-aligned movement, Tito, Nehru, Nasser, and I guess for everyone from the former Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. It would be very interesting to hear what kind of impact does the non-aligned movement have today on the policies of the foreign affairs of India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Easier to answer than the previous one. Well, you know, a non-alignment was a necessity of the times. Let me begin by saying that. You had a situation where there were two dominant power blocks with two dominant ideologies. A capitalist market-driven ideology and a communist trade-driven ideology. And there was a clash. There was a clash between these two ideologies, and the whole world was milled in that clash. The whole world was encircled around that clash. And the whole world was in a daze what to do about that. There was this great challenge, or a clash, you can say, of ideologies at that time. And that was also the time when there was the small countries liberating themselves, as I said, because that was also the time, 40s onwards, when this Cold War begins, post-Second World War, as you know, the beginning of the Cold War, post-Second World War, and that is exactly the time when India gets its liberation, and thereafter many other countries get their liberation. So 40s, 50s, 60s, by the 3 decades, all these countries are grouped together. But many of them don't know where they are, where they should go, which track they should follow, which ideology they should confirm. This was the time when non-alignment was born. It was born out of a necessity that there were certain countries who did not go to, didn't want to, say, yes to any of these ideologies. They could follow certain things, but they will not be part of that dominant ideology, because they already had been dominated for so long. They didn't want to be dominated again. That was the spirit. Why? And they wanted to, because they got their independence, they got their nationhood. They wanted to see that, themselves. They don't again want to subjugate themselves, their nationhood, to another dominant ideology. So that was the spirit in which all these countries were grouping around for a kind of a direction. What could be that direction? And that was where non-alignment was born. And it gave a good direction, and it was born by that famous Nehru-Tito handshake, and it went on to various other countries, as you know, all the big powers, I mean the small powers, small big powers you can say. And there were these Bandung and Belgrade and various bodies came, and then they set up a non-aligned conference mechanism, and there has been a lot of summit meetings, and the summit meetings goes on till today. But the most essential point is non-alignment has lost its cut, its edge, what it was at that time, because you do not have veritably a Cold War situation now. I mean, leave out the Ukraine part, I am not going into that. That could be a mini Cold War, but let's not go into that. Apart from that, there is no Cold War situation now. So you don't need to be always on the edge and kind of defending your sovereignty, defending your integrity against so and so. So that edge is lost. These powers now, and the other thing has happened is these powers have grown now. They have become nations, and well-established nations, grown economies, big established economies. So they want to establish themselves by virtue of their selves. So what do? They join some other networks. For example, G20. Almost 15 of the G20 members were erstwhile non-aligned members. They're all now part of G20. And G20 is the most formidable body in the world today in terms of power. Right? So each of these 15 powers who were hitherto non-aligned countries are now G20 member countries. And sharing the table with the big powers in one space. And therefore, I think there is now a review among these non-aligned countries as to how to move this direction. Should they call themselves non-aligned when there is no base for anything? Or they become powers in their own right and develop their own courses of action and move into their own scheme of things. Each of these countries today are engaged in regional groupings, for example. For example, our friends from Southeast Asia will bear me out. Southeast Asia with the ASEAN is a formidable power, is a formidable regional grouping. Very, very consistent, coherent and powerful. Most of these countries were part of the non-aligned movement. They still are. They have not forsaken the movement. The movement is still on. But the directions are not very clear. How to take it forward. What meaningfulness will come out of it. Thereafter you had groups like G77. You remember that G77? We transformed into UNCTAD. Then UNCTAD transformed into GATT. Now they're all members of the GATT. So they are interacting on the trade and investment services and all that through GATT. So what is the role of UNCTAD? UNCTAD becomes defunct now. Those bodies could be there. There are many such bodies. So there is now a kind of a re-evaluation of various international bodies, which perhaps have lost their edge, have lost their relevance in today's world. And new bodies are coming up to correspond to the needs of the day. And that is how we look at the very dynamically evolving society of today. The 21st century is going to be the most fast evolving dynamic society. Of course, 20th century suffered a lot because you had so much of wars in the 20th century. I mean, not only because of the two world wars, but you had a continuous series of wars in the 20th century. So I would say the development process was very largely destroyed or damaged. And 21st century, we hope that the people have learned already from the experiences of having burnt their fingers or their entire selves in the process of war in the 20th century. So they won't repeat those mistakes. We hope so, unless they are foolish. And I think today people are becoming more and more intelligent to drive their societies forward. You have the civil society so powerful today in today's societies. Even in your country, you have a good, strong, reasonably powerful civil society which is forming. Every society, for example, throws up their own non-governmental societies which are sometimes challenging the government, sometimes even challenging established institutions. And they didn't exist like that in the previous century. Why is it happening? Because the knowledge, the growth of knowledge, transforms a part of that knowledge to resistance. That knowledge can resist. The knowledge can fight for itself. You don't need a governmental machinery to have knowledge fight for itself. Therefore, the most dominant language of this century will be the language of knowledge. And whosoever is more in knowledge as a knowledge power will gain prominence in the world today. There is no second thought about it. Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for this great afternoon and opportunity to talk about India as a modern country with a great future. I would like to ask you about knowledge, and as you said, knowledge is power. About education and about the educational system. India, with such a diversity, must be a country with a very diverse education system and must have a lot of differences, which has to be directed in one goal. I hope, first of all, to create citizens of India, first of all, and then also to give them modern modern facts of the knowledge, which is also very important. One side is tradition and keep tradition, and one other is to become part of the modern knowledgeable world. So, what are the most important pillars in which, I would say valuable pillar in which educational system based on, and how you compose all these, differences and tradition and modern world. Are your experts? You mentioned that 40% of experts in America are coming from India. I met plenty of them also in my visit in America, and then were educated in India first and then came as already specialists over there, or they were motivated to study in foreign countries. Just tell us a little bit, I suppose that you know our problem of education system, and it will be great to compare.
Of course, every country develops its own system of education in its own way, by the force of circumstances. How we develop. India would have developed a different way than other countries, for example, developed European countries. They have seen education progress in a different way. Again, our education has been a necessity of nation building. We wanted people who come out of our schools and colleges to hold that responsibility that they're going to own a part of the society. They're going to be responsible enough to call themselves nation builders also. Because for us, there was nothing given. It was all new for us. So as soon as we got our independence, what we did was, basically our first Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, he laid the foundation of almost all our institutions of knowledge. For example, the IITs, the Institution of Information Technology and Industrial Technology, those institutions. Then you had institutions of management, IIMs, which are again today doing wonderful work. And then you had the institutions of science and technology, our biggest science institutions. All these were developed right in the 50s and 60s. By the end of the 60s, the entire structure, the knowledge structure of the new India was developed. And we had some 30-40 years of incubation time for people to incubate in that structure and come out. And after they came out of that, fully incubated and becoming knowledge givers themselves, builders themselves, they threw themselves out to the society wherever they were. So to answer your question, yes, most of these people were educated primarily in India. The basic knowledge has been received in India. And after having received that, for the higher levels of knowledge, they have gone to America or to other advanced societies. Because those are not available in our country, unfortunately. We still haven't been able to create that advanced knowledge base of America or Switzerland or Europe or other parts of the world like we need to have. We are doing that now. But again, I said, we had a short period. Our period given to us was 65, 68 years. You can't do a whole lot of things for 1.25 billion people to come out of that absolutely, at the ideal level of education. We give our education. In fact, our education till 8th class, which is 8th grade, is entirely free, borne by the government. And it's a huge task. Even if you take, the educational population of our country, it is huge. And to educate them for the first 8 years of their schooling comes on the government of India as a responsibility, plus feeding them. They're giving them a midterm lunch also. They get a free lunch during the school time. Nowadays every country has got that system, they have a midterm lunch. So that also is given. So, and not only that, our school curricula was made in such a way that our school books, in fact that is the beauty of it, almost all the Indian school and college books are published in India, written by Indian authors. And therefore they are very, very accessible, very, very cheap. If you buy the same book from an American publisher somewhere, it will cost you 10 times. Nobody can afford that. Indian people can't afford that. They can afford only after a certain level of getting some money for themselves, not in the beginning. So government did that. They made it very, very accessible to the masses, made it easily available to the masses. They could read and write at much cheaper cost to themselves, to the society, and therefore they were not a burden on society. We could afford that because we had a huge population to carry along. We couldn't have afforded with high cost books and even our, the textbooks, those diaries and your note sheets and all that. They are very cheap in India. Very, very cheap. Our stationery, you can say, are throwaway prices and the best quality. There's so much of competition for that. So they are made very accessible. Secondly, our fees, our education fees in schools and colleges are bare minimum. You won't believe, even today, for a postgraduate student, it would cost 300 rupees per month as fees. 300 rupees would be like €1. That would be the cost. Everything comprised, everything. He pays €1 to get the highest level education, post-graduation. Even today, in our good colleges, in our government colleges. So the government has maintained that standard, yet that accessibility and that easier way of going. And there's a lot of competition because today's the educated population has also increased so much, and there's so much of competition among themselves to reach to the highest level so that they go to the best colleges. They get those, very coveted seats wherever they are. There's tremendous competition among the students. So that gives them a sort of edge to go higher and higher in the society. And when they come out of those kind of institutions, they are the best. They have to be the best. And when they go out to America or to Canada, they already have that fire in them. So that fire will keep on for the rest of their lives and reflect in very many things which they will do for the rest of their lives in that. So that is how Indian educational system is by and large formed. I won't say that we have a very solid, efficient education system. We are going through a lot of reforms process in our education system. But you mentioned about tradition and modernity. We have made that balance of tradition and modernity. For example, our textbooks will reflect that. You know about Indian civilization, you know about the various influences, you know about the British, you know the very positive sides of British rule in India. We don't denigrate the British. No textbook would denigrate the British in any way. They of course were the colonizers, they would all know that they came and ruled us, exploited us, but at the end of the day we gained something. Those positive things are highlighted in the textbooks. And trust me, if I tell you, you may not believe, even our school children know a lot more in terms of general knowledge and information about the world than college students in many parts of the world which I have seen. They can stand up. They can stand up and challenge even college students in terms of their normal information about the world. They do know about Bosnia, but I doubt if many of the school students would know about India. I would be surprised. So, which means we have that tremendous base of general information, general knowledge, what we say. And each student is sharpening his skills. In fact, when they go to their exams, it is a turmoil for the parents, because the parents are under heavy stress at the time. They will lose the sleep because the boy has to go for a paper tomorrow. How we will go? And both the mother and father are working, they are working out in the night and saying how he will go and all. They are getting very anxious, not the child as much as the parents. So there is a tremendous, competitive ethic in our educational system, which translates into all parts of our society. Right from our primary school days, it goes up to the higher post-graduation levels. And thereafter you have a choice, either you stay in India, because today also we have a lot of educational institutions of great world class, or you go out to the rest of the world. The only thing is, when you go out, you need to have that kind of money to go, or you go on a scholarship, or you go on a loan. And all these alternatives are expensive. If you stayed in India, you get much cheaper education and good value education. So the choice is up to them. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody? Mrs. Pahit, you would like to say a few words?
No, only thank you very much for your speech. I hope we not any more questions today. Okay?
There is no.
But Mr. President, please.
So we guess if there are no more questions, I would like to thank the Mr. Ambassador for the wonderful answers to our questions, and I hope we have profited a lot this afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. And see you next time, I hope. Goodbye.